Your daily dose of sports talk is here. Highlights, interviews, and analysis. From the entertainment capital of the world, SportsWrap with Jason Page starts now.
Yes, it does, and great to have you with us on this Monday edition of the show. Hope you had a great weekend. Lots to do over the next 60 minutes, as there is every day. I don't know where we're going to fit it all in, but we will somehow persevere. Thanks for joining us across the U.S. and Canada, and wherever you may be watching, courtesy of the show being available on YouTube. We will be joined by Jerry Bonkowski coming up a little later on in the show. NASCAR in Las Vegas this weekend. 61st win for Denny Hamlin in his storied career. We'll get into that. We'll also be joined by our friend Bill Bender, who talks college basketball, all college sports with us, actually. Get his thoughts on the field of 68. March Madness about to ensue. Sam Yarnell is here as well. We'll talk to him about the World Baseball Classic, as we will talk about that right now. What do we do in this show every day to start it? You know it. It's time for the big story. And the big story begins with a big win for USA Baseball as they took down the Dominican Republic. What looked like a Dominican Republic team that was just destroying clubs. They trailed for all but a half inning of this entire tournament until they met up with the U.S. That Junior Caminero home run, that was all the offense that the Dominican Republic would get against the United States on Sunday night, as the U.S. was able to hang on for a 2-1 win in Miami in what was basically a road game for them. There were way more fans from the DR there, or rooting for the DR there, than there were for the U.S. squad. But look, the U.S. got everything you could ask for in this game that they didn't get throughout this entire tournament. They were great defensively. A team that gave up as many, if not more, home runs than anybody in this tournament, the U.S., only gave up one to a Dominican Republic team that had been hitting the ball out of the park against everybody. You have Judge making great defensive plays. He was robbed of a home run in this game, speaking of great defensive plays, by Julio Rodriguez. And then again, sort of unheralded guys as far as this roster goes. Not Bryce Harper or Cal Raleigh, who didn't even play in this game, or Aaron Judge, who, yes, had a base hit in this game, but didn't have, one of those big blows that you would expect from the AL MVP 3 of the last 4 years. It was Gunnar Henderson hitting a home run to tie the game. Then it was Roman Anthony hitting a home run to take the lead in this game. And that would be the deciding margin, was the Roman Anthony home run from the Boston Red Sox, who, remember, was a late addition to this squad. When you had an injury in this series, or for this USA team, that allowed for Roman Anthony to come in. And then there's Paul Skeens, who did enough. He wasn't great. He wasn't all-time great Paul Skeens, but he gave up one run, and he pitched into the fifth inning. And then that U.S. bullpen, and David Bednar, who's been a heart attack waiting to happen every time in this series, goes out there and does an amazing job against this DR lineup. And it's the oldest adage in sports, so I'm not breaking any ground here, and I get that. Good pitching beats good hitting every day of the week. All those runs, all that offense, all that fun. It was like a big party in the Dominican Republic, for them throughout the entire series, and their dugout and the selfies and all that stuff. They scored one run in this game. Fernando Tatis, this all-world lineup that we talk about, they scored one run in this game. Now, I know a lot of people are going to talk about the play that ends the game, and I get it. Mason Miller comes on in the ninth and is doing his thing, and he throws a pitch that should have been ball 4, and here it is. I mean, that should have been ball 4, and Perdomo should have been on first base. But instead, it winds up being strike 3. And this is why you have ABS, folks. This is why you have it. For moments like this, where it was clearly a ball. I don't care what you want to say about, they don't move the box and all this stuff. That was a ball. Undeniably. I don't care how big of a fan you are of the U.S. It should have been first and third in that spot. And instead the game ends. There were a couple of questionable calls behind home plate in this game. You have all the new rules of baseball, but the newest rule wasn't even implemented into this World Baseball Classic. Obviously, it will be in 3 years. And now the U.S. gets Venezuela or they get Italy. I'm sure they would love to get Italy again because I think that's the easier of the two potential finals matchups. And you got Nolan McLean, who's going to pitch again in this World Baseball Classic, who will have a chance to right the wrong of the only loss in this World Baseball Classic for the U.S. against Italy. And we'll see if those two teams meet up again. We'll see what happens on Monday night between Venezuela and Italy. One last thing. The NCAA men's basketball tournament. Everybody's getting their brackets ready. And obviously there's going to be a lot of conversation about the top seeds in the tournament. But where a lot of the conversation has been is on the teams that just made it in, or some of the seedings that we've seen. And we'll talk about this with Bill Bender coming up a little later on. I have one major gripe, and it's not the one you're going to think it is. It's St. John's. And I'm no St. John's fan by any stretch of the imagination, being from Connecticut and rooting for UConn most of my life. But St. John's deserved a better fate than a 5 seed after they win the Big East regular season title. They win the Big East tournament for the second year in a row, by the way. And they thump UConn in the process to do it. And Rick Pitino's team only gets a 5 seed? Doesn't make sense. They had one less loss than UConn, who winds up with a 2 seed. And UConn didn't win the Big East regular season title. They didn't win the Big East tournament title. They had 2 bad losses, one against Creighton, one against Marquette. And somehow UConn's a 2 seed and St. John's is a 5 seed? There's something that doesn't line up here. It doesn't match up here. The second thing is Miami of Ohio, who does get in, but they're going to have to play in the first 4. And is that the right place for a team that literally had an undefeated regular season? I get that they lost in their conference tournament quarterfinals to UMass, a team that isn't even in the tournament. But did the tournament selection committee do Miami of Ohio wrong? Did the Red Hawks get a bad deal? That being said, I'm going to say something that's going to completely contradict myself to end this segment. The only game they might win in this tournament is that first 4 game. Because I don't think they match up well with a lot of teams in their bracket. But we'll get some thoughts from Bill Bender coming up on that a little later on from the Sporting News. But when we return, Sam Yarnell has his own thoughts on the World Baseball Classic. You won't want to miss those next. All right, out of the big story, we get into exactly what I was just discussing in the big story. Now we get to hear from Sam Yarnell and get his thoughts on it as well. World Baseball Classic. And it was a classic. U.S. beats the Dominican Republic 2-1 in a thriller. I mean, you had October baseball in March. What more can you ask for if you are a baseball fan? Besides getting the calls right behind home plate. Small thing. But look, all that being said, Sam, and I talked about this at length in the big story, so I want to get your thoughts. But for people who may have just tuned in, the U.S. earned that win. I mean, they held down this prolific offense, for this giant portion of the game, other than the Junior Caminero home run early in the game. I mean, they held him down, and it wasn't like Paul Skeens was perfect in this game. He gave up 6 hits. He had to work and gut through it for 4+ innings. I mean, the U.S. earned this win, no matter how it ended. And again, nobody could be crazy about the strike 3 call that ends the game, but the U.S. earned this win.
Yeah, I'll push back. I don't think they did. And I think that it goes beyond just the strike 3 call at the end of the game that everybody's talking about. Listen, I've openly said on this show throughout the entire lead up and course of this entire tournament, I want to like this U.S. team so bad. I am an American. I am a baseball player. At one point, I was part of USA Baseball's pipeline. I want to love this team. I grew up on that Adam Jones catch in center field at Petco Park in San Diego. I grew up idolizing that guy because of the catch that he made that night. There is not a single player on this team besides Paul Skeens that makes you want to feel this way about that team. But back to the point, Jason, I don't think the U.S. deserved to win this game. I think Corey Blazer, as evidenced by a bunch of analytics out the wazoo that all the Twitter people are going through and the MLB umpire auditors and so on and so forth, Corey Blazer made 2 calls in this game that objectively cost the Dominican Republic runs. It's the strike 3 call to Juan Soto in the 7th inning with 2 runners in scoring position, where Juan Soto would have walked to load the bases for Fernando Tatis Jr. or Manny Machado, like with 1 out. Like, what are we doing here? It's ridiculousness that we get to what we assume is going to be the highest level of baseball, right, on the world stage to represent your countries for the ultimate prize. A lot of these players are talking about. And you have the ump show in the 7th and 9th innings of the semifinal game in a contest or in a tournament so far where the umpiring has been pretty good. And there has been a lot of praise towards umpires and how well they've handled baseball this early in the season. To have Corey Blazer go out and throw up all over himself for the last 3 innings of that game and make 2 beyond they're not even controversial, just blatantly wrong strike calls. As a fan of the U.S., you don't want to win that way, right? And it's hard to say that the U.S. earned it because you want to earn wins, right, that you want to get, right? And you don't want to win a game that way. So it's tough to say that the U.S. earned it when you want to earn wins, and that was not a win that was earned.
See, the thing is, though, you got to look at the entire body of the game. And in the entire body of the game, I think they did earn the win. You know, if you look at the entire body of this game, and again, I think some of this, you want to talk about throwing up on yourself, was also the Dominican Republic kind of throwing up on themselves. You had base running errors in this game. You had guys getting thrown out. You know, Tatis not getting to third on that play. I mean, there were a couple of base running gaffes in this game from a Dominican Republic team where it was all fun and games and taking pictures and celebrating, and then all of a sudden, you kind of...
You cannot hold Fernando Tatis getting thrown out at third base on that play against him. He's running on a right fielder who's a year removed from Tommy John surgery
nailed somebody
and barely
earlier
being able to play the outfield,
No.
who makes the second incredible play in a week. I think we should be talking more about how Aaron Judge may be back in terms of defense and the offense may be out the window, because Jason, all of the offense that came for the U.S. in this game came off of 2 solo home runs off of a tired pitcher.
Well, I mean, Judge should have had a home run. Julio robbed him. I mean, let's, you know.
Yeah, I mean, I should have done a couple more squats than I did this morning.
But I mean,
too.
come on. Look, you want to bang on Bryce Harper, that's fine. He deserves it. You want to bang on Cal Raleigh, he deserves it. Cal Raleigh, by the way, who wasn't even playing in this game. The guy that everybody wanted to be the MVP wasn't even playing in this game. You want to bang on those guys? I have no problem on it. I mean, Judge put some good swings on in this game, so I'm not. I mean, look, the strikeout, it's a terrible spot. I'm the first one that tweeted it out literally after he struck out in that big spot, saying, here we go again with Aaron Judge. But looks like we're going to get a U.S. Now, look, Italy versus Venezuela in the other semifinal, Sam. Italy has been the darlings of this entire tournament. And every time we keep expecting them to lose, they win again. Who meets the U.S. in the finals? What do you think?
It's hard to not say Venezuela, right? You look at these 2 lineups, Jason, and you're looking at a lineup full of Major League Baseball players, Major League starters, Major League stars, and a lineup full of like a couple everyday players, a couple rotation guys, and a couple minor leaguers too. Let's be honest about it. You've got the Italian catcher debacle that's going on right now. They're importing catchers from overseas because they've run out of catchers on the Italy roster. No, but it's been an amazing story, and I have fallen in love with guys like Vinny Pasquantino, right? One of my professors from college, an Italian guy from Long Island, is actually the team journalist for this team. There's a lot to love about this Italian team, aside from the fact that they're essentially the USA Baseball JV roster and they beat them in a game. But it just feels like tonight is the night. And if you're watching this by now, there's a chance you already know, but it feels like tonight's the night that, you know, the Cinderella slipper slips off.
Last thing on the U.S., the fact that Nolan McLean is your starter for this championship game is a joke. It's just a joke.
I would like to apologize to our audience. Before the tournament started, I said in a debate with David Ardsma that the U.S. was relying on Joe Ryan to start Joe Ryan declined the invitation. Joe Ryan said, no, thanks. I'm going to go back to Twins camp. Have fun with the rookie who's got a dozen major league starts.
I just wonder if there's going to be a moment where like Tarek Skubal is just sitting at home going, I should be there. Yeah. Pitching in this game. Wonder if that moment comes somewhere in that championship game. Oh. All right, we'll see what happens with the U.S. On Tuesday night. See if Venezuela and Italy, who winds up coming out of that game as well. Bill Bender is right around the corner. We'll get some thoughts with him on the bracket, the field of 68, predictions, and a whole bunch more as we continue on Sports Wrap. Welcome back to the show. Conversation continues, and we get into some college basketball because we've got our brackets. I'm the guy that waits until the last second to pick my brackets, so I probably won't do mine until like Wednesday night, something like that. Bill Bender's probably already got his done. The Sporting News, he does a great job, joins us here on the show. Sam, when do you fill out your bracket?
Already done a couple of them.
Wow. Bill?
I like you, will fill them out. I'll do 3 or 4, but I fill them out Wednesday night. And I was the guy who had the roommate in college who was the Templar Knight of brackets. It was only fill out one, and there's no reason to fill out another one. And he would make fun of me, and I'd be like, well, your bracket can end by 2:00, man. And we would always go back and forth about him. Had a great roommate, love him, but he still to this day is a one bracket guy, and that's it.
All right, fair enough. This portion of the show is presented by our friends at Colossus Fantasy. Peer-to-peer contests, cash out live on Colossus Fantasy. Pick'em games, it's fantastic. Go and use my promo code for your first deposit, SportsWrap. You get $10 deposit gets you $50, $20 deposit gets you $100. Check it out over on Colossus Fantasy. All right, guys, let's get into it. Give me some thoughts here on what surprised you most in the bracket. I was texting you over the weekend when St. John's got the win over UConn. I thought they could be as high as a 3 seed. You thought 4 seed. I don't know how they get a 5 seed. That was one of the things that stuck out to me. We'll get to that, and then Miami of Ohio. Tell me what you thought about St. John's first.
So when we were texting back and forth, where I struggled on my bracketology over the weekend, and I did for the first time, I think, at Sporting News, get all 68 teams right, but I'm not going to pat myself on the back because the bubble was so bad that it was pretty clear who those 68 teams were going to be. Where I struggled the most was between the 4 and 5 line, so I had St. John's as a 4, stunned that they got a 5. I don't like the treatment. I mean, they did sweep the Big East regular season and tournament championship. That, to me, we were talking about a 3, Jason, and I would have said that's fine too. A little bit of a disconnect with where they should be and where they are. The funny part about this is watch how many people pick St. John's to beat Duke. And then you're going to tell me they should have been a 5 seed. Not only are you going to pick them to beat the 4 in Kansas, you're going to pick them to beat Duke. And that's where I think the biggest disconnect as far as those top 5 lines was. And I also a little bit surprised that Vanderbilt dropped from a 4 to a 5. I thought they were a pretty solid 4.
Yeah, that region, by the way, the St. John's, UConn, that region is just hell. Sam, you had a follow-up. Go ahead.
Yeah, Bill, you kind of touched on it there, but the way that this bracket has been set up, we're poised for a second-round matchup between St. John's and Kansas. Now, I know there are a ton of people talking about Northern Iowa and how you can't look past Northern Iowa in the first round if you're St. John's, but assuming we get there to that second-round game between St. John's and Kansas, what sort of implications do you think that game has, not only between the Patino and Self matchup, matchup within that game. But also you've got, Darren Peterson versus Zuby Ejiofor, two guys who are going to go in the first round of this year's NBA draft. What would the implications be if St. John's met Kansas?
Well, Darren Peterson has a lot on the line this weekend. I think perhaps more than any other freshman because, you're going up against Cal Baptist and they can play a little bit. Like you said, you don't want to look past these first-round matchups like Northern Iowa. I mean, they do lead the nation in scoring defense, so they got to play. But if we get that matchup, it's not just about the coaches. I think it's mostly about Darren Peterson. Can he take this Kansas team to the Sweet 16? Because regardless of what happens to the Jayhawks, he's the guy that we're going to either blame or praise for this first weekend. So I think perhaps no player has more on the line than him. And you guys touched on it, Duke. Hey, come on down. What do you get for getting the number 1 overall seed? You get Tom Izzo. You get Dan Hurley. You get 4 national championship coaches in your bracket. It's absurd how much blue blood is in that bracket.
All right, give me your thoughts on Miami of Ohio. Obviously, not just getting in, but getting the seeding they did. 2 teams out of the MAC. Go.
It's ridiculous that they have to play a first 4 game, in my opinion. The reward for going 31-0, and it's again a disconnect between we rely so much on quadrants and net ranking and quad 3 losses and those kind of things that you kind of lose sight of. This team went 31-0. I thought they should have been a number 10 seed. I really like Akron too, by the way. They had a great finish to win the MAC championship. I got them I think they're going to win as a 12 seed in the first round against Texas Tech if they shoot the ball well. But yeah, I think Miami should have been a 10. I think St. Louis got a little bit of seed disrespect as well. I mean, did you watch the end of that sequence against Dayton? I mean, are we going to penalize them for that shot-making sequence between those 2 programs? It was incredible.
Bill, as we look towards the first 4, because I always think that these are 4 great games that people continue to underrate year in and year out.
Yeah.
But obviously we've touched a little bit on the Miami of Ohio SMU game. Of the other 3, is there any one that particularly excites you?
I mean, believe it or not, I'm looking forward to Texas NC State, and both teams are not playing well. But on one hand, you have an NC State team that shoots the 3 very well. Will Wade's back in the tournament. And Texas with Sean Miller. I almost slipped my mind. I was like, oh, yeah, he coaches there. Terrible finish to the season for the Longhorns, but they're in. That's one of those just feels like it's a pick 'em for a reason because it's probably going to be a wildly entertaining first 4 games. So I'll definitely settle in and watch that one as well. Dalen Swain, go back to last year, he had 27 points for Xavier in the first round, so he could have a big game there.
Where do you every year we look for these Cinderellas, and I know a lot of people have kind of gone on the theme that there's going to be less and less Cinderellas. Where do you fall in that conversation?
Well, my editor just texted me an article about it. The death of Cinderella, is it NIL induced? Probably a little. I mean, last year you had John Calipari and a 10 seed dressed up as a Cinderella. That was the only double-digit seed that got to the second weekend. So I still think there's a little room for madness. I always keep an eye on the bracket buster type schools that have a bunch of seniors, that have played with the program. Now, a team like High Point that won 30 games, they have a bunch of transfers. So they're a team that I'm keeping an eye on in that game against Wisconsin because anytime you win 30 games, you're doing something right no matter what conference you're in. So keep an eye on the Panthers there. Problem is they're playing a Wisconsin team that isn't afraid to get out and go, too, and shoot a bunch of threes.
All right, we got more to discuss with our friend Bill Bender, the sporting news, college basketball. The NCAA tournament is here. Get your brackets filled out. We'll have predictions later in the week, but we'll get some of Bill's predictions as we continue on this Monday edition of Sports Wrap. Don't go anywhere. Lots more to do. Continuing the conversation with Bill Bender from the Sporting News, does a great job on all things college sports, college football, college basketball, NCAA tournament. Field of 68 is set. What else jumped out at you, Mr. Bender, from what we saw? Good, bad, or ugly?
So the Michigan region has 6 teams that were in the top 10 in scoring. this season. So you're going to have some fun games there. St. Louis, Georgia. We talked about Alabama playing Hofstra. Potential Sweet 16 matchup between Alabama and Michigan would be a lot of fun. Some questions around the Wolverines, but I have less. I don't think they lost yesterday because LJ Kason's out. I mean, they've won 4 games without him against tournament teams. I think they got pounded inside a little bit. And that would be my concern with them, that they have to defend. And when they have to defend against the team that can shoot from 3-point and score inside, like Alabama, it could translate into a really fun game. So I think that region in particular is going to have some really fun matchups with some high-scoring games where you can take the over.
Bill, looking at the Big Ten and their final in Purdue beating Michigan, what's your concern level with Michigan entering the tournament right now? Do they seem more liable to be upset early because of what you saw in that loss to Purdue, or do you think that'll light a fire under them and they are more poised to make a deep run?
Well, every year we do our predictions at Sporting News, and I pick them to win the whole thing. So I think I'm not as worried as, say, some of our other experts. Mike DeCourcy picked Arizona, and that's a perfectly good pick. I always make the joke that I've been doing those predictions for us at Sporting News since 2017, and I think I've got the title game winner right one time. It was UConn in a year where you couldn't miss by taking UConn. But I like their team. I still think they can score. I think Morrow will be a huge player in the tournament for them. He's the key, the center. They need Elliot Cadeau to stay out of foul trouble because Kason's out, and Yaxel Lindeborg obviously can make the big shot. So I'm not as worried about them as maybe some others. And I do think if the Big Ten's going to break this 26-year drought, this is the team to do it.
Is North Carolina susceptible to you with the Caleb Wilson injury and sort of, given what's befallen them here?
Yeah, because VCU is really good, and they've only lost 1 game since like January 17th, and they were kind of another school that unfairly treated like they had to win the A-10 to get in. This is a really dangerous team, VCU, not just in that game, but maybe to make the Sweet 16.
Wow.
Of those double-digit seeds, I like VCU a lot. And then on the other side, but they have to beat North Carolina. That's the catch. And then the other one I like a lot, but they've got to go out and beat Kentucky is Santa Clara. I think when you look at their makeup and the way they play around Herb Sendek, they've got a team that could pull an upset there out of the West Coast Conference. But you're picking against Kentucky and North Carolina. That's always risky.
It's a Kentucky team that's lost a couple of bad games this year, though. Bill, one of the biggest discussions, or maybe one of the most controversially discussed things I saw among college basketball fans over the weekend was all of these schools that kind of fell off of the bubble through their conference tournaments or what have you, announcing that they weren't going to partake in the NIT. They were opting out of the NIT despite the fact that they weren't going to make the NCAA Division I men's tournament. What do you think has caused all of these larger schools to kind of push away the secondary tournaments that we're so used to seeing them compete in, the NIT, the CBI, which I think has now become something completely different? But how do you feel about all of these schools kind of declining their invitations to go play in other tournaments?
Well, it feels like bowl games, doesn't it? Where, these teams opt out of bowl games because the coach leaves or they're disappointed or those kind of things. And, with all this talk about the tournament expanding to 76 teams, that's only going to get worse. But I'm more of a proponent of let's keep it at 68. The NIT is still fun. I still enjoy watching it, especially when it has 32 teams. It's good for teams that want to make that building block to the next year. We're the snubs from the mid-majors. So hopefully that doesn't become a trend.
Give me a thought on UConn. The bad losses to Creighton and Marquette, the 2 losses to St. John's, and a loss to Arizona. I mean, that's what you have when you look at this UConn season. Give me a thought here on Dan Hurley's team and sort of, again, that brutal region they're in and where you see them going here.
They got to defend. They do defend well, and that could get them in the tournament. I mean, a potential for a UConn-Michigan State game will be every question you want to ask about Hurley, you could ask about Tom Izzo. Is this team good enough to make an Elite Eight run? Can they get to the Final Four with the style that they play? I think the guards would be key there. UConn needs to shoot the ball a little bit better and defend a little bit better. And if they can do that, set up that matchup with the Spartans, if the Spartans get through, and like what you said, it's just a ridiculous region with so much blue blood in it that we've lost count.
Bill, with the last minute we have, a team that I just keep drawing my eye back to is the Arkansas Razorbacks and John Calipari. Do you give them any sort of a shot coming off of this Cinderella? Well, I don't want to call it a Cinderella run, but this run that they just made to the SEC championship, do you give them a shot to be sort of an underlooked team or an overlooked team that makes it to the Final Four this year?
Well, a potential second round matchup against Wisconsin could be high level entertainment. I mean, Darius Acuff is one of the best players in this tournament. Again, another freshman with so much to prove, and he's carried this team. And I know Cal had some bad first round losses at Kentucky, but when you get him in the tournament, he can coach. And it's the same way I feel about Pitino is like, if I'm a coach of another team, those are the two coaches I don't want to play against, especially if you give them a little bit of an underdog card. That's very dangerous. But yeah, Arkansas playing very well. Look for that to continue this week.
We only got about 20 seconds here. Were you surprised Penny Hardaway kept his job at Memphis?
A little bit, but I mean, there's work to do there. He's taken them to the tournament. That's a tough job, a tough undertaking, and but not surprised he's kept the job. No.
Okay. Bill Bender does a great job with the sporting news. Who's your Final Four?
Michigan, Duke, Arizona, and Illinois. Illinois goes off the chalk. Watch out for the Illini. I think they play well.
There you go. Bill Bender, the Sporting News. Check out his work there. Appreciate you, my friend.
Hey, thank you.
Welcome back to the show. Continue the conversation. If it's a Monday, we're talking NASCAR with this guy, the one and only Jerry Bonkowski, EssentiallySports.com, longtime auto racing writer. It was a heck of a weekend for auto racing in the U.S. between the IndyCar race in Dallas and then NASCAR in Las Vegas. What will one day be a Hall of Fame career for Denny Hamlin, continuing with this race in Las Vegas. Second time in a row he's won there. We were all looking at Kyle Larson. A lot of people looking at Kyle Busch from a sentimental standpoint. But it's Denny Hamlin that gets the win. And, boy, he had to overcome some adversity to do it with the penalty early in this race, Jerry. Give me some thoughts on Denny Hamlin. 61st win of his storied career?
Yep, he's now 10th on the all-time wins list in NASCAR. And the thing about Denny is, and I don't mean this in a bad way, I mean this in the most complimentary way of all. I think a lot of people were waiting for him to get that first win this year because of all the off-season tragedy that he endured. I mean, his father passed away in a fire. His mother was seriously injured. Denny had said he was going to probably retire, or he was thinking about retiring. And I think that everybody was hoping that he would get a win early, and then he would be able to, kind of, I don't want to say move forward, but, this one was for his father. No question about it. This win yesterday on Sunday, it was definitely for his father. And, his father was everything to him. He mortgaged his house a couple of times to let Denny keep on racing. So Denny, I think this could be the start of as equal, if not a better season than he had last year. 6 wins last year. I think he could very easily do 7 or 8 this year. I think he's going to be a man that's going to be very determined, and he's going to do it, for his father.
What has allowed him to be so successful for so long where, guys go through ebbs and flows? What is it about Denny Hamlin that's allowed him to be this good this long?
One thing I don't think people really realize, and I've heard this from a number of fans and fellow reporters, they don't give Denny the credit for his intelligence. I mean, he may seem, maybe not book smart, but he is extremely intelligent when it comes to, setups, knowing what's right with the car, what's wrong with the car. He can relay his information to a crew chief better, I think, than anybody I know other than maybe Kyle Larson. I mean, the guy he knows his stuff. I mean, if Denny ever decides to retire and wants to stay in the game, he'd make an excellent crew chief, in my opinion. I don't know if he ever wants to be a crew chief, but the point is he is just so good in telling about how a car works and how it can work better, or how, what to do, change, all that kind of stuff. And that's been a big help for his team. That's why he's been able to win so many races. The downside, of course, though, is he hasn't won that championship. That's going to be the one thing that's kind of hanging around his neck, so to speak. So I'd like to see him do it this year. I mean, he came so close last year, but I think this year he's got a little bit more motivation, a little bit more inspiration. And I mean, people say, well, Denny's going to retire after 27 or 28. I really wonder if he may go all the way to 50, maybe even longer than that.
Kyle Larson won on Saturday. A lot of people liked him in this race. Give me some thoughts on what went wrong for Kyle.
Nothing really. I mean, he just was in the wrong place, at the wrong time when the race finished. I mean, that's he led so many laps. I mean, him, Kyle Busch. I mean, I think everybody was looking at those two guys to win. But Denny won the last race in Vegas last year. In the fall, and that he had some great notes from that race, and I think that was the thing that put him over the top. I mean, he knows that track so well. This was his third win at Vegas. I mean, he just seems to be very dominant at mile-and-a-half tracks. So I think that it may have been, while it may have been a surprise to some people, it wasn't a surprise to me. I thought that he could very easily do it, and he did.
Give me some thoughts on Chase Elliott, William Byron, Hendrick Motorsports finishing second and third. Byron grabs the stage 2 win. Christopher Bell won the first stage. Some thoughts on where all those guys, sort of wound up in the overall scheme of things.
Well, I think this is right around the time, and we talked about this last week, that, after the 4th or 5th race of the season, that's when guys start seeing what they have. And, Elliott, Larson to a certain extent, Byron, they've all had some struggles in the first 5 races, but I think they finally got their act together. I mean, I hate to say it that way, but I think they saw what, some of the problems they had early on, and now they can go forward with that. You look at a guy like, Kyle Larson, and defending champion, he's got a lot to make up for, if you will, in terms of how he defend the title again for this year, or will Denny Hamlin be the number one thorn in his side? I think he will. So I just like what we saw yesterday. I mean, yesterday was to me, a prototypical 1.5 mile track race. I mean, it's a very fast track in Vegas, and I think that there were some wind issues. I know that there were some weather issues and that kind of thing, but it was a good race all in all.
Last but not least, Tyler Reddick, after winning the first 3 races of the season, sort of faded to 13th here in the final run. Still obviously has the points lead, but maybe the first signs here that the field's catching up?
No, not at all.
Wow.
To me, it's just, this is the cyclical nature of the sport. I mean, you're going to have the periods where you're going to have 3 wins in a row, and then boom, you struggle for a while. But I mean, look at the first 3 races were wins. His 4th race was, I think, he finished 8th, I believe, and he finished 13th yesterday. Okay, that's not bad. I mean, I bet any other driver in this sport would give their right arm to have the same kind of results. So I think that there's nothing to worry about him. I mean, he had yesterday or Sunday was a kind of a off day, but still, to finish 13th is not a bad thing.
Last but not least, Darlington next week. Give me some quick thoughts on who you like there.
Survival, that's what it's going to be, survival of the fittest. I mean, Darlington is one of the hardest tracks for anybody to win. If you don't come out of there with a big stripe on your car, from hitting the wall a few times, then you haven't done your job. But I like Byron. I think that he's got a good guy to look at. And I think that you also have to look at somebody that maybe you don't expect to win at a place like Darlington, because it does kind of even out things sometimes for guys who've had struggles. A perfect guy in my mind, Ricky Stenhouse Jr. I mean, nobody's talking about him. He could very easily win at Darlington. So it's basically what I call a pick'em kind of race. Somebody's going to win. It's just, it could be anybody. It's a wide open field as far as I'm concerned.
Jerry Bonkowski, check out his work, essentiallysports.com. They do a great job covering everything there, and he does a great job with auto racing as well. Thank you, my friend. Always appreciate you. We'll talk next week.
Sounds good. Take care, Jason.
All right, just about time to put the wraps on this baby for a Monday. Who knows what kind of surprises we'll have on Tuesday's show? That's a tease. You're going to have to tune in. Before we go, a few reminders. Sports Wrap with Jason Page podcast, available on all your favorite podcasting platforms. Audio version of this show, Monday through Friday, wherever you get your podcasts. Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube Podcasts, iHeartRadio, TuneIn, Odyssey, Amazon, anywhere you get a podcast. Also, extended conversations available there. Those extended conversations also available on our YouTube channel. The Sports Wrap with Jason Page YouTube channel is the place for all things Sports Wrap. The Monday through Friday TV version of the show, commercial free, available there. The Sports Wrap Spotlight is there. Our conversations with our guests put into their own little segment. So you don't have to scan through the show. You can just go and check those out. Extended conversations, Sports Wrap Shorts, also available there. Monday through Friday, weekends too. Big news breaks, we jump in on the YouTube channel with SportsWrap shorts, 1 to 3 minute long videos to get you caught up on whatever it is that is going on. What? Are you making fun of all my hand gestures? Is that what you're doing? Is that what it is?
SportsWrap shorts. SportsWrap shorts.
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough. I don't know what we're going to do during like March Madness. Because there's no way. There's just no way to keep up with everything. So I don't know how.
The intern's going to be going crazy.
Yeah, I don't know what we're going to do for Sports Wrap shorts during March Madness. Sports Wrap shorts available on our YouTube channel. Again, go and check those out. Sports Wrap shorts also available on our TikTok, Sports Wrap Jason page, and on our Instagram. Yet again, Sports Wrap Jason Page. And now, without any further delay, on this Monday edition of the show, it's time for some odds and ends. Odds and ends, Sam Yarnell. How about the win for the one and only Cameron Young, your winner of the Players' Championship? I don't know how many people had him on their card to win this thing. He bests Matthew Fitzpatrick. Those two going toe-to-toe right to the 17th hole when Young knocks it pretty damn stiff and then makes the putt. And then Fitzpatrick with that putt on 18 to send this thing to what would have been a playoff. Instead, it's Cameron Young, your winner at the Players' Championship, Sam Yarnell. And Ludwig Oberg, it was all fun and games. It was all great until it wasn't for Ludwig Oberg, who just died in the final round yesterday, Sam.
Yeah, it was really tough to see Ludwig. And I thought this to myself as I was watching the tournament, Jason. It's always tough in any golf tournament at any point when the group with the two guys who are fighting it out to win is not the last group on the course, right? That's always a little awkward. Yeah. I wonder how awkward it was yesterday, but you know, you had Ludwig a hole behind the eventual winners group. It was incredible to watch. And it wasn't even like, can he, maybe make a crazy eagle and come back on 18. No, there was no he was just going to have to finish out his round after everybody had started celebrating. I have to think that is the most awkward feeling in golf. But Jason, Scotty Scheffler, we got to talk about him. Scotty Scheffler finished tied for 22nd in this tournament. Is Scotty broken?
I don't know. You see signs that it's still there. I'm going to tell you, though. I'll move away from Scheffler for a second because that's an easy one. I am keeping an eye on Brooks Koepka for the Masters because his game is starting to come around. I got to see a lot of them during this tournament, and the shot making is there. He makes a few putts, and he's right there when we get to April and the Masters. I'll tell you another thing. Guy who's kicking himself right now because there's 4 rounds to a tournament. Xander Schauffele missed so many putts in the first round or two of this tournament, short putts, that if he makes, he's holding that trophy. He wins the Players' Championship if he just makes a couple of putts in the first and second round of this tournament. I know it's 4 rounds and we focus on what happens on Sunday, and the last hour and a half of this thing was wild. But Xander Schauffele should have won this tournament. He played well enough and could have won this tournament. One last thing in odds and ends here. I thought it might have been the game of the year in the NBA on Saturday night. Lakers Nuggets, the finish in that thing. If you didn't see it, here it is. Austin Reeves misses the free throw intentionally. You never see this work. It works perfectly in this spot. He gets the carom, hits the shot, they go to overtime. Nobody could score for like the first 3.5 minutes of overtime. And then you have Luka. And again, why aren't you fouling here, David Adelman? I have no idea. This is another one of these games now where Adelman's coaching has left me kind of scratching my head. Remember, they fired Mike Malone, who only won an NBA title. And they decide to bring in Adelman here. And he doesn't throw 2 men at Shai Gilgeous-Alexander in a game against them a couple of weeks ago. Now in this spot, he doesn't have them fouling Luka in there when they have a foul to give. Mind-boggling stuff. And then Luka hits the game winner, Sam. And that's why you brought Luka to the Lakers.
Yes, you're right. I did think Austin Reeves also looked incredible in this game. Jason, The Nuggets got to figure something out with Jamal Murray. I don't know what's going on. He was 1 of 14 from the field in this game.
Yeah.
That's a little crazy because the whole rest of the team around him, I'll tell you, starting to look good for the Nuggets, but they got to get the Murray situation figured
I wonder
out.
if he's banged up a little, and he was banged up just a couple of weeks ago. I wonder if just physically he's laboring a little bit, because when he's right, they are really tough to beat. It's going to do it for us. Thanks to Bill Bender, Jerry Bonkowski, you, Sam Yarnell. We'll see you all back here on Tuesday for another edition of Sports Wrap. I'm Jason Page. Bye-bye.